Safety first.
So on the one hand, you have the Washington Post editorial board, which is not the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, calling out as a danger Katie Wilson, the mayor-elect in Seattle, essentially arguing she's got no experience and a really scary ideology. Because all of a sudden the Washington Post is starting to, lean more moderate in the editorial board. At the same time, the President Trump press conference today with FIFA on World Cup got Katie Wilson in its sights. Now, in fairness, it's not like Trump brought up Katie Wilson on his own. He was asked about potential problems with safety in Seattle, and if it is an issue under Katie Wilson, will the World Cup games, there's 6 of them that are going to be hosted here, will they actually be moved? Now, some people I saw on X took the president very much out of context with what he said. There's nothing in this quote that is all that crazy or even remotely controversial.
The new mayor-elect of Seattle is a Democratic socialist. Seattle has...
Or beyond, I watched her.
Right, Seattle has
that's more than socialism.
Right, Seattle has 6 World Cup games. How close are you going to be watching that city with the crime in that city?
Now, by the way, he's next to some folks from FIFA. We'll play some of that audio in a bit.
If we think there's going to be a sign of any trouble, I would ask Johnny to move that to a different city. We have a lot of cities that would love to have it number 1, and we'll do it very safely. So if we think there's a problem in Seattle where you have a very, very liberal/communist mayor, I would say, it's certainly beyond just liberal. I watched her over the weekend. Wow. That's another beauty we got there. But if we think there's going to be a problem, Johnny, can I say we will move? I don't think you're going to have this problem, but we're going to move the event to some place where it's going to be appreciated and safe.
Now, some people claim that he said he threatened to pull the World Cup from Seattle. He can't do that. He doesn't. That's not what he said. He was actually quite reasonable and said, if we, the president and FIFA, believe it's too dangerous, we would think about moving the World Cup from the city. He didn't threaten anything. He was actually quite reasonable in that. And would you listen to... Let's live in a world in which Seattle is incredibly dangerous, okay? Mass murder after mass murder after mass murder every single day. God forbid. Something awful. Wouldn't you want the president and FIFA to say, maybe we ought to rethink this? We've got a bunch of people who are coming into the city to visit for the games. Let's put it in a place where people are a little bit more comfortable. We're not going to be able to guarantee people's safety. Wouldn't you want that as the answer? Like, his answer there was actually quite reasonable and normal. But people are pretending otherwise. Oh, he's threatening. He doesn't have the power to do it. He didn't even say he had the power to do it. And by the way, as he said at the end, he goes, I don't think we're going to have to do that. I don't think we're going to get to that point. And he's right. There's the chances under Katie Wilson and under any mayor, things deteriorating that quickly to that degree is very slim. But here's the FIFA administrator, Gianni Infantino.
I think safety and security is the #1 priority for a successful World Cup.
Well, no, I mean, the quality of the game should be #1. I'm not going, I don't think. You can be dangerous out there, but is it fun on the pitch? Is it entertaining?
We can see today that people have trust in the United States when we see at the ticket sales, we sold, record-breaking figures of tickets.
Well, okay, first of all, you sold a bunch of tickets when it was in, where was it, Qatar?
Oh, yeah.
Like, people, this has a built-in market. And if you do it in countries like the United States, of course you're going to hit record numbers. If you did this in London, you would hit record numbers too. That's not, it's like, you can put it in Timbuktu and you're going to sell a bunch of tickets just as a guaranteed given.
Almost 2 million already sold out of 2 million that we have been selling. This is because people, they know that they will be coming here and they will experience a safe and secure World Cup.
I don't know anyone who's actually saying that. It's just not going through their head, which is a good sign, by the way, because you don't want to say, You can buy those tickets, man, but I'm really I don't know. Do I want to go to Seattle or Chicago or New York? No, they're just saying I want to go see the World Cup.
This is the responsibility,
And by the way, soccer fans, especially internationally, they're the most dangerous people in the world.
of course, of the government, of Secretary Norm, of everyone. And obviously, we will, we will discuss. We are working together. We have a task force for this.
Was this controversial at all? Like even a little bit? Sure, did Kristi Noem shoot a couple puppies in the Oval Office? A mistake in retrospect. She should not have done that, but it's fine.
We are communicating with all these mayors about what their responsibilities are. They know the safety and security of these events is their number one responsibility, and we'll be there. The president's always there to keep Americans safe, but he also makes sure the people that know their responsibilities and that they're prepared to host these events and do so in a safe manner.
I'm not expecting any real controversy. Are you?
No.
Right? Again, if anything, the safest time to be in Seattle would be during the World Cup next summer. Like if you've been saying to yourself, look, I don't feel comfortable stepping foot in Seattle because of homelessness. I don't want my kids seeing drug addicts everywhere. I don't want to get robbed, all those things. I totally understand. But if you're one of those people who says, but man, I really miss, walking through Pike Place, right? I really miss just a stroll at the waterfront. This is the one time you should come to Seattle because it'll be clean. It will be just completely renovated, essentially, unless Katie Wilson turns out to be exceptionally incompetent. And it's not even like she's in charge of this. You're going to have bureaucrats who will clean everything up. Now, I suppose in the world in which we don't embrace that kind of attitude when it comes to these kinds of world events, it would happen under a Democratic socialist as mayor. But as I've noted on television, in fairness to Katie Wilson, she didn't really run as a socialist. I was on with Guy Benson last week about this, and he's like, what's it feel like to have this, hardcore socialist as mayor? And I said, she's never really identified during the campaign as a socialist. I mean, that wasn't a key piece. She is a socialist or a Democratic socialist. But she wasn't really making a big deal about that moniker the same way that Zoran Mamdani was. Zoran Mamdani was proudly a socialist. She barely said that. In fact, could you even think of a time where she said, I know she has, but none that immediately come to mind that I can point to and say, oh yeah, remember when she said that?
Yeah, there's not like a particular soundbite that really jumps off the top of your head.
Because I don't think she clearly didn't run on that. Now, her ideas are socialist, and she ran on ideas around affordability and homelessness, et cetera, policing. She said she's evolved on, and I'm hoping that she's telling us the truth on that. But I don't know. This one, to me, I've been trying to temper my criticisms or hold back some of them because I want her to succeed in a general sense. I don't want socialist policies, but I also don't want her to fail to the point of chaos because I live here. And, maybe I move out of Seattle to Bellevue, somewhere relatively close because I don't really want to commute to the office. That's my biggest issue. Otherwise, you can find amazing homes right now in Renton, like nice parts of Renton or Shoreline. It's supposedly the next big zip. Is Shoreline. But I don't want to commute that far. It's just too much. Bellevue, I can probably stomach. I'm going to hope that she does well. But I will say, I was really, really, really shocked to see the Washington Post editorial board not just talking about the mayor of Seattle, but flat out calling her out. Did something change with the editorial board of the Washington Post? Did we miss this memo? I know Jeff Bezos has been trying to put some pressure on the editorial department there to at least be more even-keeled and fair in their coverage, but not to be flat out conservative. They were pretty conservative. I mean, they're calling it Seattle's coming socialist experiment. Writing, Katie Wilson, an activist with even less experience than New York's Zoran Mamdani, narrowly defeated the incumbent mayor of Seattle earlier this month. The 43-year-old community organizer, a first-time candidate with no meaningful management experience, will soon lead a city of around 800,000 residents with nearly an $8.9 billion budget. Who is Wilson? She doesn't own a car. She lives in a rented 600-square-foot apartment with her husband and 2-year-old daughter. By her own account, she depends on checks from her parents back east to cover expenses. To let them off the hook, she seeks to force residents of Seattle to pay for free childcare and other goodies. Like, already, they're clearly criticizing her in a way that the Washington Post traditionally does not criticize liberals. They said 14 years ago, after working odd jobs as a barista, baker, lab tech, and legal assistant, Wilson co-founded an advocacy group called Transit Riders Union to agitate for better public transportation, paid for by new and higher taxes. She says she decided to challenge Bruce Harrell earlier this year after she opposed a new tax on high earners to pay for housing construction after he opposed for housing construction. She campaigned on a local capital gains tax, a digital advertising tax, and a statewide wealth tax. Now that sentence, again, out of fairness, is not true. She did not campaign on those 3 issues. She mentioned those 3 issues. She did not campaign on those 3 issues. Again, out of total fairness to her. And they say Seattle is already struggling, and residents find the city unaffordable because it's long been a petri dish of failed progressive social experiments and absurdly high taxes. Restaurants and coffee shops keep closing because of $20.76 an hour minimum wage. By one estimate, Seattle has the second highest prices for dining out in the country, below San Francisco, but above New York. Seattle's office vacancy rate is now above 33%. Major employers like Amazon have relocated thousands of workers from Seattle to Bellevue right across Lake Washington because it's safer and friendlier. The mayor-elect's plans will simultaneously accelerate the exodus of businesses while making the city more of a magnet for vagrants and criminals. Like, wow, what happened at the Washington Post? I feel like we've just missed so much potential good content. And you know that this had got to have been picked up everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so out of the norm for the Washington Post. We wrote about this, and we've got links to it at seattlered.com. Seriously, though, kudos to them for actually saying something. Because there'll be a lot of folks who, once the experiment here and in New York fails, and it will fail, I just don't want the damage to be catastrophic. Well, New York, I don't care. But here, I don't want the damage to be catastrophic. I imagine then you'll start to get some of the articles written or editorial boards coming out and say, this was failed from the beginning. It should have never happened, but they didn't say anything up until that point. So kudos to the Washington Post for actually saying something. They can't just be the Wall Street Journal, which is more conservative on their editorial board. It can't just be them. And they oftentimes weirdly talk about Seattle. Washington Post, I don't think, has ever written anything about Seattle in the editorial.
They're like, where is that?
Right? It's so out of nowhere. Like, I was legitimately shocked, and to shock me at this point is nearly impossible. And yet we found the one story that did. So we've got it written up. We've got the links over at seattlered.com if you want to read it. But more importantly, you can spread this so other people see it. And maybe, Katie Wilson doesn't want to be a failure as mayor, right? She knows that there's a lot on the line, and I imagine she's feeling a lot of pressure. So let's keep the pressure on to make sure that she doesn't just lean into the crazy. Although I'm not going to hold my breath completely because, again, of all places, the Washington Post pointed this out. They quoted her website. Quote, "I will appoint a cabinet of exceptional leaders whose lived experiences reflect the diversity of Seattle's Black, Indigenous, Asian and Pacific Islander, Latinx, Hispanic, and people of color communities, as well as that of women, immigrants, and refugees, 2SLGBTQIA+ communities, people with disabilities, people of all faith traditions, not Catholic or Jewish, and residents from every socioeconomic background." And then they say, "We're sure 2SLGBTQIA+ Americans everywhere shed tears of joy. But it doesn't matter who she appoints if they're implementing policies that will make Seattle poorer and less safe." That's a deep cut right there.
Scathing rebuke.
Right? Wow. I might pretend to give the Washington Post a second chance or 20th chance. The truth is, I'll forget about the Washington Post's sudden right direction of what were we talking about? Let's find out what else is trending.